The newest wave of Innistrad Crimson Vow spoilers have just been revealed. We have fascinating mythic rares, we have a tragic hero, and on top of that, we have this curiously confusing Kea to talk about.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. My friends, I hope the day finds you well because we have another delicious batch of Innistrad Crimson Vow spoilers to talk about. And we're going to start out with this card, which I find both powerful and confusing at the same time. So, this is Kaya Geisthunter. 1 black, 1 white, and 1 gets you a 3 loyalty Planeswalker. Her first ability is +1. Creatures you control gain Death Touch until end of turn. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature token you control. It's important to note that it's a token because that does take the power level of this ability down just a little bit. When I first read it, I didn't notice that it said token, and I'm like, whoa, this gives all your guys Death Touch and just puts a +1 on one of your guys as a loyalty increaser? Feels pretty good. Having it be a token reins it in just a little bit and keeps this card from being too powerful, in my opinion. -2 ability is really impressive. Until end of turn, if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. So it's a doubling effect you can use right off the bat after casting her. And she only costs 3 mana to put out. And using that ability doesn't even eat up all of her loyalty. So I have to say, I was kind of like super impressed when I read that ability. I'm like, dude, you get to double all the tokens? That feels so good. And then the ultimate is also awesome. -6, exile all cards from all graveyards. So this is obviously going to scale if you're playing in Commander games. Create 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying for each creature exiled this way. So however many, not each creature, sorry, each card exiled this way. So it counts all the cards in everybody's graveyard, exiles all of them, and then over what that total is, if you had 10 cards in your graveyard, your opponent has 10 cards, that's 20. You make 20 1/1 white spirit creature tokens. It's like, bam! Just instantaneous, massive squad. So for 3 mana, this feels really, really solid. The fact that you can give all your creatures Death Touch can either be used to force your opponent to let your guys through, really, because they don't want to lose their guys, or it can be used to make even the smallest little creatures just go, hey, if I've got an ability that does damage directly to you, I can still take you out, right? Like, if you play a green deck normally, you're used to those cards like Rabid Bite and stuff like that, having Death Touch creatures and being able to go, boo, I just do 1 damage to you, but guess what? That's enough to destroy you. It's amazing. I mean, obviously, the ability would be even more powerful if Death Touch lasted until your next turn, but then it would work too well in defending Kea, and I think that her power level is right at that sweet spot where she's strong, but not overpowered. Time will tell. I could be wrong about that. Now, I did say she's confusing, and that's because she is called the Geisthunter, and the concept is she's, supposed to be hunting geists, but the artwork shows her slashing a vampire. So she doesn't have any abilities on her card that would match up with what's going on in the artwork. She's called the Geisthunter. She's shown here destroying a vampire in admittedly an awesome looking way. The art looks so cool. The vampire's been split by her blade, and he's turning into these like blood rose petals that are drifting through the air as he is breaking apart. So it's very striking. Kaya looks pretty intense, but I have to admit there's something about her body positioning. I don't know how much you guys know about the old WWF wrestling, but when I see her, I think like Bushwhacker, here we go. You remember those guys? So yeah, when I look at the artwork, I'm like, you're a ghost hunter who's destroying a vampire, and none of your abilities on your cards seem to have anything to do with the artwork. The artwork looks great, don't get me wrong. It just causes confusion when I go, okay, I don't really get exactly how this all ties together, but whatever. Still looks pretty solid, even if she is bushwhacking it up. Moving on. We have Welcoming Vampire. Pretty solid card. 1 white and 2 for a 2/3 flyer. Whenever 1 or more creatures with power 2 or less enter the battlefield under your control, draw a card. this ability triggers only once each turn. If this didn't have that limitation and could trigger based on however many creatures you had coming out with power 2 or less, it would be bonkers. As it is, if you can make like a little token creature on your turn and your opponent's turn, you're going to be netting a lot of extra card draw. And also, this feels like it would go really well with things like, if you remember yesterday's video, and I'll put a link at the end of this video with a playlist of all of the spoiler videos in case you want to go through anything more for Crimson Vow. But if you remember Markov's Coffin, it does make 1/1 vampires each turn. So when combined with this, it's literally just, I make a token, draw a card off it. There's great synergy there. The flavor text says, from the moment they arrived, wedding guests were met with a pageant of wealth and excess. That's pretty cool, right? This vampire is literally just like a greeter at Olivia and Edgar's marriage. And you can see all these bats spiraling around her as she's making it rain these blood petals down. And she does look quite welcoming and friendly overall. You know what I mean? She's got a nice gown on. It's pretty imposing, especially with all the mist and like kind of fog effect that's behind her. I like it. I dig it. Solid. Moving on. We've got Ill-Tempered Loner. 2 red and 2 for a 3/3 human werewolf. Whenever Ill-Tempered Loner is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any target. This is a great ability. Being able to take the damage that you have and just go, you feel my pain, and blast it at somebody else is awesome. And you look at this thing, it's got a pump ability too. 1 red and 1, and it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So it's got double cost, double pump fire breathing. So you're going to basically have this creature that's just going to, you can make it bigger and bigger to the point where your opponent's going to feel like they have to block it. And they're going to want to block it with something that does enough damage to take the Ill-Tempered Loner out. Like you put this out, you're going to have 4 mana in the next turn. You could pump this thing's power up by 4 and be swinging with the 7/3 that says, yo, if you don't go ahead and do something, block this guy, he's going to pummel you. And if you do block him, if you block him with a guy big enough, then I'm going to have a nice chunk of damage to redirect to either you or one of your creatures. And if you chump block it, you're still going to take damage and lose your guy. But it gets even better because this is a werewolf, so you have the other side where it gets even crazier. And that is the Howl Pack Avenger. Actually, you know what? I didn't comment on the artwork here. Maybe it's because I looked at it and was just like, I like the wolf in the front, but the dude, he's just an angry dude sitting on the front with these little like magical spikes sticking out of him, which I guess is, he's going, yeah, and they like shoot out of him like a porcupine into anybody who's hurt him. It's all right artwork, but just for some reason, it didn't really get me that excited. I mean, look at the stonework in the background. It looks great. It looks very believable, but whatever. Let's move on. So, Howl Pack Avenger is the other side of the card. It is a 4/4 werewolf. Whenever a permanent you control is dealt damage, Howl Pack Avenger deals that much damage to any target. And again, it's got that double pump fire breathing for a red and 1 +2/+0. So you'll notice that this is whenever a permanent you control is dealt damage. So now this applies to all of your creatures and Planeswalkers as well, which is just wild. It's crazy. Thinking about doing a swing with this is amazing. I do love the fact that those little spikes that were shown coming out of his bracers and everything like that are now emanating out of his body, right? And they can apparently be manifested on other creatures, or he just gets so angry, y'all don't touch my friends. He goes, porcupine action! I'm a porky wolf. That is a weird and unwieldy word. Anyways, artwork's pretty solid. Card itself, pretty exciting. Not too shabby. Moving on. Now we've got the tragic hero. We now know who's been turned into a vampire. Audric has returned, and he is now blood cursed. 1 white, 1 red, and 1 for a 3/3, and they've decided to keep Audric true to the spirit of his ability, because Audric normally cares about abilities on your creatures. So when Audric blood cursed enters the battlefield, create X blood tokens, where X is the number of abilities from among Flying, First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance found amongst creatures you control. Now, you only count it once for each creature. So if you have like 3 flyers, or for each ability, I should say. So if you have 3 flyers, you only count flying once. But you count up all the different abilities you have that he has listed, total them up, and that's how many blood counters you get. So depending on the board state, this could net you a lot of blood counters. And Crimson Vow does have a lot of cards that genuinely care about blood counters. So they're not a useless thing. And just the fact that you can use them to basically start chewing through your deck. Draw, discard and draw, discard and draw, discard and draw, right? So this is Audric, who was once a paragon of virtue and a sign of hope for the Church of Avacyn. And here he is. He's been converted into a vampire. You can see in his face, he's got that feral bloodlust going on. He's got his one claw like extended and forward, almost like he's thinking about using it instead of his sword, more going with the animalistic base instincts that have come along with his new form. And I really enjoy the fact that he's got like this holy blade of Avacyn glowing blue that is shown in contrast to like the bloody nature. Like the whole back behind him is all crimson, and it looks like he is actually causing like a river of blood to flow, which is so intense, man. Imagine knowing Audric, right? And then he comes back as this, and he's just ready to feed on you, and he's got blood magic making the blood flow around in the air. It would be absolutely horrific and very intimidating. So it's well done, and it looks very cool in this frame. Moving on, we've got Jacob Hawken. Now, this was a card that wasn't technically spoiled today, but there were some cards that were spoiled in previous days, but weren't provided in English, and I chose to only use English spoilers. So we're going to go over some cards like that in this video as well, because I want to talk about them. So this is Jacob Hawken, Inspector. 1 blue and 1 for a 0/2 legendary human advisor. Tap, draw a card, then exile a card from your hand face down. You may look at that card for as long as it remains exiled. You may pay 4 and 2 blue. If you do, transform Jacob Hawken Inspector. The flavor text says, our world may be dark, but there's still plenty to see. And you take a look at the artwork and you can see he definitely looks the part. He looks like an inspector. He's got his magnifying glass. He's got some sort of clue that he's inspecting, while he's also apparently looking at this hand that's like laying there. I mean, it's really the hand of a body, right? You got a body with a sheet over it laying there. I guess maybe he's looking at an amulet, a bracelet, something else associated with this body out in the cemetery. He's got that kind of like speculative look in his like face. That's the kind of vibe that I get. So you can use this obviously as a way to filter your draws. You can tap them, draw a card, exile something you don't really care about, but you are going to want to exile cards that are going to be worthwhile. Once you see the transformed side, you'll understand why. So this, a first ability, it does feel kind of weird, where you go, okay, I'm drawing a card and then exiling a card, and that's all it does. I can look at it, but I can't play it, and I can pay 6 mana to transform them. What do I get when I transform Jacob? Well, Jacob turns into Hawken's Insight, which is a legendary enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library face down. You may look at that card for as long as it remains exiled. Once during each of your turns, you may play a land or cast a spell from among the cards exiled with this permanent without paying its mana cost. So on the human side, you can sit there and kind of blorp it up, start adding stuff up so that you can take advantage of it when you flip to the other side. But the enchantment also feeds itself every single turn, grabbing a card and letting you play it for free, which is very, very respectable. And I like the way the artwork is done. You can see here, we're seeing pretty much the same kind of scene, right? He's in a slightly different position, but this is Hawken holding up his clearly magical magnifying glass, and it's showing the geists that are in this graveyard here with him, the perpetrators of it. And I love the mystic energy that's flowing off in an ethereal nature off of his magnifying glass. It looks great. This is really, really cool artwork and a really cool concept as a card. Like, to me, this seems amazing. I can't wait to try it out in the cube. Once you get it flipped over and going, it just feels like it's going to be completely bonkers. Just free spells. Free spells or extra land drops every turn for the rest of the game, no cost to you. How do you lose with that, right? Moving on. We've got Creepy Puppeteer. 1 red and 3 for a 4/3 haste human rogue. Whenever Creepy Puppeteer attacks, if you attacked with exactly one other creature this combat, you may have that creature's base power and toughness become 4/3 until end of turn. This is a really interesting concept because this is a human who knows how to operate a puppet in the same fashion as a regular being. They're able to use their puppet so flawlessly that they can transfer those capabilities over to other beings. So when you attack with another creature, the puppeteer can literally lash puppet strings to them and orchestrate their body in a way where even something as simple as the card we just looked at, Jacob, the 0/2, could be turned into a dangerous 4/3. I assume the puppeteer tosses over a hammer and makes whoever they're using as a puppet slam in with the hammer. But even increasing the toughness, if you think about the level of expertise it would take to be able to manipulate somebody else as a puppet to the point where you could increase their physical strength, agility, and durability, like that is a mind-blowing concept. It doesn't feel like a terrible card. It doesn't feel like an amazing card either, let's be real. 4 mana for a 4/3 with haste. All right, when you swing, you can turn another creature into 4/3. All right, you know what I mean? Like, you can be coming downtown for 8 on the 4th turn with it. But it's by itself, it's It's cool that you can use it to beefcake other creatures. Like if you had that little 1 casting cost 1/1 goblin that when it goes to the graveyard, it does damage equal to its power, you could puppeteer it, turn it into a 4/3, and then if they're blocking it or it goes to the graveyard, all of a sudden it's going to do 4 damage. And that is a lot more respectable. So it's got potential, but for me, the card is really cool because of the concept. The literal puppeteering of another living being is amazing to me, right? And the artwork is awesome. In the forefront, if you're wondering who's who, it's kind of harder to tell with the smaller artwork, but if you see a fully blown up version of the artwork, you can see that in the foreground, we have the human rogue. She's alive. And in the background, higher up, is the puppet. It's in her, you can really see it in her face when you get in close, and also with the articulation of the hands and the wrists and stuff. But when you take the artwork at a glance, you could be forgiven for thinking that this is just 2 regular people, right? Like 2 dancers doing a particular sort of performance. I really like the way this card ties together. I love the flavor of it. I think the artwork is actually really pretty. This is something, you know what, I wouldn't mind having like a print of the art or having this on one of those art cards. It comes through very well overall and is a cool Magic card. Moving on, we have Howling Moon! 1 green and 2 for an enchantment that says, at the beginning of combat on your turn, target wolf or werewolf you control gets +2/+2 until end of turn. And whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, create a 2/2 green wolf creature token. Now, this second ability feels specifically weird to me. I mean, when we look at the concept of a Howling Moon, sure, you know what, making wolves or werewolves stronger, that makes perfect sense to me. But whenever an opponent casting a second spell each turn, you get a 2/2 wolf. That feels weird. Why are you getting a wolf from them casting their second spell? Like, are the wolves going, oh, there's a flurry of activity over there, we should howl to more pack mates? And what's even weirder to me than that is it feels like the casting a second spell ability really feels like it's mostly a white ability. So most of the time, you're going to see a spell that says, like a white card that says, when you cast your second spell, do this, right? It seems to be something that is moving into white's color pie. But white and green are allies, and this feels like an anti-playing 2 or more cards in a turn ability. So it feels like an anti-white ability, but it doesn't make sense for green to have that feel. So it does change the nature of the card to me in a way where I look at it and go, this feels like it was meant to trip up white decks. And you don't normally see that with allied colors having a go at each other, right? So the artwork shows, very clearly. A moon with those crazy lines of light that I still don't know what they are around it. I also don't know why Audric's a vampire. I'm looking forward to learning more about the story. So you've got the wolf howling at the moon, and you have like a pack of sheep. Oh, maybe that's the idea. Maybe the idea of your opponent casting multiple spells is supposed to be like a gathered flock of sheep, and the wolf howls out to say, yo, there's more food. Let's eat these sheep. You know what I mean? That could be the vibe. It's an interesting enchantment and very cool for a wolf or werewolf themed deck. Anyhow, that wraps up all the spoilers. Thanks for coming by, my friends. Big thank you to all my patrons for supporting my channel. I'm going to leave a link to my newest Innistrad lore video and the playlist of all my Crimson Vow spoiler videos. And I will see you guys tonight, those of you who want to come to the live stream. I've got some fun mail to open. All right, so goodbye for now. See you next time.